everyone, and welcome to our webinar today, focusing on how AI accelerates Clean Core. I'm Jo from Lemongrass, and I'm joined by my colleague Chris. Chris is an enterprise architect at Lemongrass with 20 years experience in SAP and cloud transformation. He helps organizations modernize platforms, enable data-driven decision-making, and align technology with business outcomes. I'm Jo, a principal advisor and enterprise architect at Lemongrass, bringing 20 plus years SAP experience in the functional space, and I focus on large-scale migration, transformation, and AI projects. Lovely to meet you.
Hey everybody. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about SAP's big Clean Core initiative, which of course almost every partner and customer has heard about extensively from SAP, really a guiding North Star at the moment. And we're going to explore not only what Clean Core is and what it means to customers that we work with every day, but also how we can get to Clean Core faster, easier, and maintain that Clean Core in a more efficient way using the power of some very recent technologies, not least of which generational AI. And how we've really been able to move quickly with customers to solve a lot of problems around Clean Core quickly using the power of that new technology with our LCP Clean Core AI tool. I'll also try and do a live demo, which is always a little bit dangerous, but I have a recording in case we run into any bother. But thankfully, the demo tool's been very stable recently, so hopefully all will be well. Let me pass over to Jo to talk a bit about the Clean Core, get us all level set on what Clean Core is.
Awesome, thank you, Chris. So let's unpack it. So Clean Core isn't just about cutting out your custom code, even though that is a very big part of it. It's so much more than just that. It's about following those quality standards where you do need to use custom code. It's about having the near latest software versions and patches and using those standard features where possible. Processes are really important with Clean Core, using the best practice processes in the system where possible that are based on years of industry experience and data. It's about modernizing your integrations, also using standard data objects correctly. You know, if you're using Product Master and Business Partners, for example, if you're using lots of different fields that you've customized in those objects, that's moving away from the Clean Core and you're not taking advantage of that those clean data objects. It's also about compliant partner solutions and getting those clean processes. But one thing that often customers might not realize is, well, why do we want a Clean Core? What's the real reason for wanting this Clean Core? So it does increase your company's flexibility, reducing risk, and also opening the door to improvement and removing technical debt. So obviously, if you've got a core that's full of custom developments, it's much harder to adopt those new innovations that are coming along in the roadmap. And that's the reason behind it's the stability and also setting the stage for innovation and AI and all of that good stuff.
Jo, I've heard customers talk about other uses for the Clean Core AI tool. Is there value in Clean Core thinking about things like an S4 transformation journey or other kinds of transformation the customer may be undergoing?
Absolutely. So when you're looking at something new, maybe moving from ECC to S4 or any ERP product, having that Clean Core is good to set the stage, but also you want to know what new features are available in those systems, what pieces of AI or other automations are available on the roadmap of that tool. So that can help accelerate your project by finding those things ahead of time and helping you to plan accordingly. Great question, Chris.
Thanks, Jo.
So the three questions that we want to answer when we're looking at a client's core. So what have I got today? So that's the question of how unclean is the core? How many developments are in there? What do they look like? Are they big developments, small, complex? Are they high usage, low usage? So actually finding what you have in the system and where most of that code sits. Is it spread amongst different lines of business? Is it focused in one area like finance? And then the next question is, what do I do with these items? And we'll come up to something we call the 6 R's, the disposition. So what do you choose to do with that code? Is it necessary to keep it? Can you retire it? Is it not been used for a while? Can you revert it to something standard in the system that you were referring to there, Chris? Getting on that that sort of a roadmap of getting closer to standard. And then finally, how do I make those changes? So how do I implement that? How do I create that new thing in the system, whether it's new code written with cloud compliant standards, or whether it's getting a Fiori app, for example, that can replace that, that code? So these are the three questions that we see as the theme from most of our customers today. And just on the 6Rs that I mentioned just before, so these are dispositions, so these are things that you can choose to do with that custom code. Retire, so if you've not used that code for a long time, or it's not used very regularly, it could be a candidate for retirement and just removing it from the system altogether and not using that again. Reverse, we found lots of customers are very excited at the idea of seeing some SAP standard alternatives. You know, you could replace a piece of code with a Fiori app. It could be something in transportation management. It could be a general ledger Fiori app, where actually that app is doing already what your custom code was doing. So you could actually revert to the standard option there. There's also repurchase. So in some cases, you could choose to purchase another license, which does the role of the code anyway, or it could be within the SAP suite, or even beyond the SAP suite. You might want to look at tools. Retain. So in some cases, it's simply not possible to remove the code or replace it with something standard. You might want to retain that code. But you know, you might want to rewrite that according to modernized standards, so that you're still adhering to those clean core principles as far as possible. And then you've got the rehost. So could you put that code on the BTP, business technology platform, so it's running side by side with your your core stack, and that's the compartmentalized, so that when you do upgrades, it doesn't have to be tested quite as extensively. And then finally, refactor. So in some cases, you could have, for example, very convoluted, large piece of code doing lots of things, and you might want to just keep that and move that onto a cloud as a microservice, for example. Does that make sense?
Once a customer's achieved Clean Core, they've been through the exercise of understanding what they have a disposition analysis of how to solve it, and they've moved towards a Clean Core. Is there a guiding light from SAP that everyone should eventually move to the SaaS version of ERP? Is that where this is all headed?
I think there's a tendency and an encouragement to move to the software as a service model. Absolutely. And one of the things that we'll look at shortly is obviously the LCP AI tool, which you can introduce, Chris. And one of the things it will look at the SAP roadmap, at the roadmap viewer for potential SaaS solutions for these things.
Absolutely. I've noticed. Sorry, Joe, I didn't speak over you.
No, just say modernising the landscape.
100%. I've noticed that almost none of my customers can entirely rely on what used to be called Grow, the ERP cloud solution from SAP, which is entirely software as a service. But my feeling was from SAP that the idea is you can have the best of both worlds. You can have all your custom extensibility on BTP, or as we discuss here, also maybe outside of the SAP walled garden as a microservice, but then also retain an entirely vanilla, literally software as a service platform from SAP for your core ECC system, which I always found as a very or core ERP system, I should say, which I always found as very interesting as a direction that SAP is setting for the 5 to 10 year mark in the future for everyone.
I completely agree, Chris. Absolutely. I'll pass over to you now, Chris, to introduce the LCP AI Clean Core tool.
Marvelous. So now we're all level set on what Clean Core is from SAP, where it's going, the direction, and how we think about it from a methodology point of view to be able to arrive at a Clean Core. I can now talk a little bit about our tooling system, our LCP Clean Core AI solution that helps customers to get there faster and in a more efficient way. What this tool will do, or the vision for this tool, is to take your existing system and landscape, be it SAP ECC, S4HANA, EWM, or other ABAP set of systems, although we are looking to expand the functionality also to PIPO and BW in the near future. runs through a series of processes that I'll demo in a moment, working with your teams, with the architect as a architect sidekick, if you like, really enabling those architecture teams, enterprise architecture, solution architecture, and functional SMEs to move more quickly with information that helps them make decisions faster, so they can arrive at a modernized system, typically on RISE with BTP extensibility. So the key message here that I want to give before I jump into the system is that what we're giving you is a solution that works alongside your team. It doesn't seek to replace them.
That's
Right,
great, and I like the idea of the architect sidekick as well, and I can imagine this greatly speeds up some of those early decisions, Chris.
Absolutely, it's all about accelerating decision making, accelerating that phase 0 of your transformation program. Right, let me try and take the screen. Then hopefully you guys can see our system. Brilliant. So here is a demo environment for our Clean Core AI solution. It has a IDES system loaded into it, so a SAP system used for training and demos and so on, with some data and custom objects loaded into it. Inside the system, there are just shy of 50,000 custom objects, which equates to 3 and a bit million lines of ABAP code. That's maybe a third to a tenth of what we would typically see in customer systems. And what this environment has done is it's clustered those objects together to form a RISE-FW disposition. You can see there's approximately 1,500 RISE-FWs. It's derived from that object list with a very high degree of accuracy. We can look at a bit more detail as to how that's done if we go into the clustering of the tool. If I show you just a very simple cluster to explain the concept, we can look at a more complicated one right afterwards. So here we have an entry point to the cluster, and you can see graphically the tool is showing you how the calls are flowing through that clustered group of objects. And I can have a quick look into this object. This entry point is making 3 function calls. You can see them here in the code, and that's where these 3 functions are coming in. And we can have a quick look at what these functions do. This one's relatively simple, looking at different operators and performing different operations. This one is looking at exceptions, and this one is changing a type. So this is relatively straightforward, and an ABAPer and a functional consultant will be able to understand this very quickly. However, things in SAP are rarely that simple. Here, we found an object in the IDES system that is more appropriate, more typical of a customer's environment. And you can see here the clustering is much more extensive. There are many more objects associated with the entry point. You can see here we have programs, functions, includes, tables, classes, and other objects mapped out. And again, you can see the flow of calls going through this. So you can see the dependency map, and you can follow it through the environment. It's really interesting. Whenever I speak to customers and demo this tool, they come up with interesting new use cases we haven't thought of yet. Last week, I had a customer say, hey, I could look at the flow of PII data throughout my tool. And absolutely, we can do that. And indeed, the tool does look at PII data for the disposition recommendation. However, there are probably more appropriate tools for PII analysis, but it was interesting to hear them explore another possible use case. Right,
that's great, Chris. And I think some of the feedback that I've had as well is how developers are very sort of excited about the transparency of these clusters. So being able to see how all of these objects link together and how retiring one of them might impact another one.
100%. I think if you talk to any ABAPer, they'll tell you it's really important to understand the dependencies between the objects, and this graphical flow, I think, is a really nice way to look at it. We can also have a look at some of the metadata we're recording on these items. So you can see in the graph, we have things like betweenness and in degree and out degree. And what those things are doing is they're building the cluster that identify the RISE-FW items and the clustering of objects. There isn't quite a one-to-one match between a cluster and a RISE-F. So you might have multiple clusters involved in a RISE-F and multiple RISE-Fs involved in a cluster. But for the purposes of this demo today in our half-an-hour session, we're going to think about RISE-Fs as equivalent to clusters. You can also see other information about these objects, though. So complexity, you can see here, there's a lot of complexity in this part of the cluster, but less in the rest of it. And you can see things like usage. So whilst this is an IDES system, and so the usage is fabricated and not what you would see in a customer environment, you can see how heavily used these items are, which is different, of course, from a retire score, because you can't only look at how frequently things are used. Maybe they're only used at year end. Maybe they're only used when the company has a once in a 3 or 5 year event like an acquisition or a divestment. So usage data is not quite the same as whether or not you can retire or indeed for the other different disposition analysis. We also have other information such as source bytes, lines, tokens, and other information that isn't shown on the screen yet, but is coming to the environment as we work through the backlog and provide more surfacing of the information the tool has derived or taken in from the source environment that we connect to. Right. So that tells us what the cluster is and how the information works, but we can do more than that. We look at a more complex piece of code. This is 50,000 lines long or so. It's a big piece of ABAP we found in the IDES system. And we can generate functional specifications that describe what that piece of code does. So here you see our standard template, which talks about dependencies, needs, operational considerations, field mapping, error handling, and so on. It also includes a really lovely graphical representation of the flow of the piece of custom code and the associated objects in the cluster, explaining how that RICE-FW works with the decision points and the different activities logically separated out. So this is a functional level specification, and we've found that our customers are really happy with this, even at an audit level, providing a good level of quality for describing in an update version what the cluster of code does. The way this is generated is using generative AI, and each of the sections of the document is generated individually. The prompts are customized for each customer to get the level of quality required, and you can see the standard prompt function there. Each of these sections then runs and reviews and then finalizes, checking that it's done it in the right way. I will generate this live, but I'll use a LLM that we wouldn't normally use for writing functional specs, so the quality won't be the same, but it will show you the process. What it will be doing now is for each section of the document, it will be going through, writing it, checking it, and then scoring itself to see how well it did on each of these different areas. And it will do a number of iterative runs to get the level of quality up, doing a number of inspections using the AI again to check it's got the right outputs, until it reaches a level where it's done enough tries, and then if it hasn't been able to get to the level of quality, it will give up and tell you that it's got a lower quality score than would be required otherwise. So you can see here they're all 0 because I used no deep research and low-powered LLM just to get it to run in the timeline. But before it would have been 95 or 100 using the correct LLM and deep research mode. We also have an analysis of standard features. So here you can see the SAP standard features that could replace some or all of the custom code we see here. You can see some themes here. Managed claims has a 97% likelihood of usefulness. Managed settlement documents, the Fury app, an 89% level of usefulness. And the idea here isn't to just immediately accept the standard code and revert it. The idea here is to provide options as to what might be useful to replace it. And there's some analysis that will go on with the disposition analysis that I won't demo today that will help guide towards which one of those dispositions would make sense for the team to choose. So this is enabling the team to make a decision more effectively by surfacing information that would allow them to make that decision quickly and correctly. You also have links to the SAP pages, which you can use in your S user to go through and understand them in more detail. And then third-party apps. So at the moment, this scrapes the SAP marketplace. We want to extend it to other marketplaces in the future that will look at the things you can pay for to add on to SAP, where the product is shared among multiple different customers. And so you're not bearing the burden of managing that custom code alone. You're working with a pool of customers for these products. And so it should be, hopefully, higher quality and lower effort to maintain and have updates more frequently than a customer may be able to manage independently. You can see again, it's rating the likelihood that these things would be able to provide a solution for some or all of what the code does, and it also surfaces immediately in the table the pricing model and the feature link. And again, this is generated by generational AI, so we can change the prompt in order to be able to get the information the customer needs from the marketplace or other sources surfaced right to the front. And all of this information leads into that disposition analysis to help teams understand what they should do with this code to be able to answer the decision. Once we understand what we have, what do we now do with it?
That's fabulous, Chris. And this, what you've just shown there, really showcases how this is the architect's sidekick. If you think the amount of work that an architect has to do without an accelerator, having to go through the internet, the tools available, looking at pricing, looking at third-party apps, whereas this at your fingertips, you can see a summary of the code, you can see options, and you can jump into those. It must really, really help. And it's a very popular feature as well when we are speaking to our customers.
Absolutely. I've spoken to customers that have done just the first piece, right? Understanding what RICE-FWs they have, making sure they have updated functional specs and everything is correct without thinking about step 2. What do I then do with it? And that activity has taken them 6 months to do manually, whereas the engagements we're running are something like 10 to 12 weeks to get this done. So and that's not answering just the first question. It's also working out what do I do with it and having an approach for how you solve that. So it's taking you much further in a much shorter space of time in a more cost-effective, efficient way.
Awesome. And it's not just a one-time, is it, Chris? So obviously over time you want to keep a clean core. So will this tool support that kind of continuation of clean core beyond the initial implementation?
Absolutely. I think when we first built this tool, we'd imagined it would be a one-off activity, but customer demand has driven us to build this as an ongoing integration into their software development lifecycle. So this is available to license perpetually, and customers are asking for 5 or 7 or even longer term deals in order to be able to embed this into what they're doing. So their functional teams and ABAP teams don't have to worry about writing specs anymore. They can get them written and then just adjust whatever they need to tweak. And they know they're going to be high quality. They'll know they'll be consistent. They know they'll be derived from facts across the team and be consistent with the specs that have been written before. So as an example of one of the functions of the tool, obviously staying clean, making sure you're continually reviewing your code, continually reviewing features from SAP that could replace them with newer versions. There's a lot of different ways in which customers are using this on an ongoing basis, but yes, we've been driven by the market to do exactly that. Does that answer your question, Joe, or were you driving at something slightly different?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so if I head back to the front page of the tool, and I'll just need to select the IDA system again, we can also look at how we surface this information in a way that's useful for functional teams. So we've worked out how we identify our clusters in our RICE-FW register and how we can write specs for those, but then what do we do with engaging the functional teams to decide what to do with those objects? We have a business process hierarchy here that by standard, we load the standard Signavio and LeanIX business process hierarchies. You don't need to own the tools to have those hierarchies. We're not connecting to Signavio or LeanIX at this time, although that is on the roadmap for the future, and I will speak about that in the slides in a moment. But what we find is customers typically have their own business process hierarchy that they want to load, and we can load that to the tool and then map it against your own business process hierarchy. So what this is doing is it's taking the clusters, which for the purposes of today's conversation we'll think of as RICEFs, and it's categorizing them by the different areas in the business process hierarchy. So if we dive into something simple that everyone understands, such as org management, we can see it goes down to 3 levels in this business process hierarchy. And if I jump into that item, I'll be able to see those 3 clusters or RICEFs. I'll be able to see what the disposition selection is. So this is retain, this is rehost, and this is refactor. And at my fingertips, I can go and look at the functional spec, which in this case hasn't been generated. So let me quickly generate it. I can look at the different options of where I could revert this to standard, what I could buy from the marketplace. So I have all that information available to speak to my functional team at my fingertips to make a decision of what to do. I know there are some other tools in the marketplace that will just go ahead and make these changes, but I always think that's a little bit dangerous without consulting your functional team to say, hey, I think we can get rid of this code. Not only because no one has used it in 3 years, but also because of these other factors that the tool has told me, the research I've done independently, and here you can see the functional spec and what it does, and then you're making a decision that has the buy-in from the functional team and the business, not just being made on some technical parameters that may prove to be incorrect the next time the company does something like an acquisition.
I really like how this is, you can do this at multiple levels there, Chris. So, you've got line of business level all the way down to, the business capability, quite specific. So it kind of humanizes the whole clean core thing, where you could say, look, our accounts payable team or accounts receivable team, here are what we have, here's what we plan to do with it. And you can then send that to those folks and ask them to review and see if they agree, if they disagree, if they think it's a great opportunity. Yeah, I love that.
100%. And it surfaces so much more information for those teams to make the decision, including the reasoning behind the disposition recommendations and what was chosen. There's just a wealth of information to have that conversation with the teams immediately available in the tool. And as you say, we can also look at this at any level, right? So if you wanted to go up a level in the tree, you can. If you wanted to go to the top level of HR, you could, and you could have a conversation about a different grouping of custom objects. Right, so that is assessment, the business process hierarchy, the functional specification. I think that's everything I wanted to demo today. Maybe we just quickly look at a bonus, the value calculator. So here we have a calculator that looks at what it would take to do this manually versus how it works using the LCP Clean Core AI tool. And it gives you some really nice comparisons and graphical representations to help feed a business case for this delivery. What we found is there's also tends to be hyperscaler funding available for these initiatives, at least at the moment. The hyperscalers are really keen to help teams move to a Clean Core AI RISE disposition, and also, of course, are keen to fund relevant AI initiatives, which can help to make this a reality for many customers in the marketplace. Joe, is there anything else you think I should show in the tool in the short time we have today, or do you think that will do for a demo?
I think you've covered all of the good stuff there, Chris. Excellent.
Great, thanks so much. Obviously, the tool has much more depth and functionality, but in our limited time today, I think we'll pause it there. I'll hand back to you for the slides, Joe.
Absolutely. Okay, hopefully my slide should appear now. And I will pass back to you, actually, Chris, to talk a little about the integration with the SAP tool chain.
Right, you are, Joe. So I spoke a bit about the backlog and the things we're building in the near future, for example, 2B functional specs, and looking at how we help with that third question of how do you make the change. And to that point, we're looking at integrating with several of the other tools, specifically in the SAP tool chain, to help us make the tool not only more effective at the first two questions, what do I have and what do I do with it, but also looking to solve that how do I do it question, rewriting the code in BTP, running through a test cycle using ABAP Test Cockpit and Tricentis, and coming back with the answer ready to go with the deployed containerized solution. That reality isn't quite here yet. We're probably 6 months to a year away from it, but on that journey, we expect to be able to integrate to Joule for Developer, Joule for Consultant, to be able to affect the changes that the 2B functional specification propose. Also to things like Cloud ALM to register the custom code and the migration path, and also to walk me for a vision we have that if, let's say, you're reverting to SAP standard and you're moving to a Fury app from a custom transaction code, what you would be doing is when you're moving to that custom transaction code, WalkMe would be aware that that transaction no longer exists, pop up and guide the customer to the relevant Fury app and then how to complete the process in SAP standard. So we really see some powerful integrations to the SAP toolchain to affect organizational behavior in a very proactive way, in addition to being able to solve the change and get the business buy-in to do it. Also, LeanIX and Signavio, powerful tools from SAP, looking at the application landscape as well as the process landscape and optimizing processes. There's clear integrations there that we can use to enrich the data in those tools. For example, in Signavio, to look at linking to updated relevant functional specifications, also to feed into Signavio as to how moving to standard may affect a process as a way to link back to the Clean Core AI tool, and then bringing in from Signavio not only an updated business process hierarchy as it's changed in that tool, but also KPIs and other relevant information for decision making by teams in Clean Core AI. And the LeanIX, again, we can bring in the capability maps and enrich the LeanIX information about the SAP solutions with artifacts links. And also LeanIX looking at, when we talk about landscape simplification, we can look at other third-party applications maybe outside of SAP add-ons that could enhance functionality with standard tools rather than relying on custom functionality. when people are looking at application rationalization and technical fit and business fit. And then, of course, Synity, with whom we have a collaboration, bringing data insights into LCP AI for Clean Core. I spoke about our intent to extend this tool to PIPO and to BW. We see that there is enormous value within the data space, not only looking at the level of technical debt in most BW systems that can lead to a significant saving on infrastructure and ultimately rise cost when making that move, but also looking at the future journey about BDC and integrating with other data platforms like Databricks to provide insights using SAP data and not just the data from outside the SAP ecosystem. So we have big vision for the LCP AI tool and the integration with the wider SAP toolchain. Joe, is there anything else you want to add to my overview of our vision for the LCP AI as an integrated SAP toolset?
No, I think you've covered it really well, and I think it's very exciting to see the tool expanding into different areas, your BW and then the data side and even in security, roles and authorizations. It's just great to see such a powerful roadmap and future for this tool. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so just to sort of wrap up, so the whole session that we've done today, it's been around those 3 questions. So what have I got? What does my core system look like? What does that code look like? How much of it have I got? What should I do with that code? We saw the 6 R's there: can I revert to standard? Can I retire? Can I rehost, refactor, etc.? And also the all-important, how do I do it? And we saw the integration with the toolchain before, that those links to tools like Tricentis, also dual developer. So it's all about that and putting that knowledge into action, accelerating that task of what the architect has to do there. And we like to think of it as like a speedboat, so speeding up the process, turning it from something that can take months and months into a period of just weeks. And you can get faster analysis, better planning, and a smoother delivery. And also the fact that you can use this tool beyond, as Chris was saying, beyond just an initial plugin and sort of pilot. You can continue to use it for an entire life cycle and constantly be scanning those new features that are coming along on the roadmap. Anything to add there, Chris, from a sum up perspective?
No, I think that's a great summary. The tool gives you the power to be able to move with freedom and helps you go fast. I think that's a really good summary of what the tool does. And that's interestingly not only in the context of just Clean Core, but also S/4HANA migrations and other forms of transformation. Avoiding vendor lock-in is another thing our customers use. Just getting up-to-date functional specs for auditors. It's amazing the number of use cases our customers have found for this, but it's always about having the knowledge to be able to move with freedom and then go faster.
Absolutely, Chris, absolutely.
Okay, so
go on, Chris.
Yeah, hopefully you guys have been excited and engaged by our tool set and our vision for how to move to Clean Core much more efficiently and much in an accelerated way. If you would like to engage us for maybe a demo specific to your organization, maybe to look at one of your programs specifically and showcase what our tool can do, please do reach out to us either via the QR code or the email address here, and we would be delighted to come and talk to you about how we can help in your Clean Core journey. We were a little bit snowed over by demand, but we've scaled the team now, so we're ready for people to come and say hello. We'd love to get your queries in.
Absolutely. Well said. And thanks, everyone. We are looking forward to helping you to make Clean Core a reality for your business. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.